The morning at Lincoln High School started like any other Tuesday. Students hurried through the hallways, lockers slammed shut, and teachers reminded everyone to get to class before the final bell. No one noticed 15-year-old Marcus Johnson walking with his head down, shoulders hunched, as he made his way to his math class. Marcus was a good student, quiet but smart. He kept to himself most days, finding refuge in books and numbers rather than the social chairs of high school. His mother, Tanya, always told him that education was his ticket to a better life. He believed her and worked hard, earning top grades in most of his classes. But something had changed in recent weeks. Marcus started finding excuses to stay home. His stomach hurt. He had headaches. Sometimes he just said he was tired. Tanya worried but chalked it up to teenage stress. She had no idea what her son was really facing. At 1:15 p.m. that Tuesday during fifth period, Marcus asked his algebra teacher, Mrs. Bennett, if he could use the bathroom. She nodded without looking up from her desk. Marcus slipped out quietly, clutching his hall pass in his sweaty palm. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Mrs. Bennett, now noticing his absence, sent another student to check on him. The boy returned quickly, his face pale. "Someone's passed out in the bathroom," he said, his voice shaking. "I think it's Marcus." The school moved into emergency mode. The principal, Mr. Davison, rushed to the scene while the school nurse called 911. They found Marcus on the cold tile floor, unconscious, with a small trickle of blood coming from his nose. His backpack was torn open, papers scattered across the wet floor. "Don't move him," the nurse instructed as they waited for the paramedics. She checked his pulse, finding it weak but steady. Word spread quickly through the school. Students gathered in the hallway, whispering and pointing as the paramedics arrived with a stretcher. Teachers struggled to maintain order, herding curious teenagers back to their classrooms. "Probably just fainted," one teacher suggested to another. "You know how these kids don't eat breakfast." Mr. Davison, however, wasn't convinced. Something didn't feel right. Marcus wasn't known for health problems, and the torn backpack suggested something else might have happened. While the paramedics took Marcus to the hospital, Mr. Davison returned to his office and called Tanya Johnson. The conversation was brief but difficult. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Principal Davison. There's been an incident involving Marcus. He's been taken to Memorial Hospital. He was found unconscious in the bathroom." Tanya's scream was audible to everyone in the front office. After hanging up, Mr. Davison turned to his assistant principal, Mrs. Torres. "Let's check the security cameras. I want to know exactly what happened." The school had installed a new security system just months earlier, cameras in every hallway and outside each bathroom. They didn't show inside the bathrooms, of course, but they captured everyone who entered and exited. Mrs. Torres pulled up the footage on her computer. They focused on the time period when Marcus left his classroom. The footage showed him walking alone to the bathroom, his posture suggesting nothing unusual. But then, 3 minutes later, 3 other students appeared in the frame, looking around before entering the same bathroom. "Pause it there," Mr. Davison said, leaning closer to the screen. "Zoom in on their faces." Mrs. Torres did as instructed, and both administrators fell silent as they recognized the 3 boys. One was the star quarterback, another the student body president, and the third was the son of a school board member. The footage continued. 7 minutes later, the 3 boys exited the bathroom hurriedly, one of them wiping something from his hand onto his jeans. Marcus never came out. "Oh my God," Mrs. Torres whispered. Mr. Davison reached for his phone again, this time to call the police. Tanya Johnson raced through the emergency room doors of Memorial Hospital, her heart pounding in her chest. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. A nurse directed her to a small waiting area where a young doctor in a white coat was already standing, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm Dr. Rivera. We're treating your son Marcus." Tanya could barely breathe. "Is he okay? What happened to him?" "He's stable now," Dr. Rivera said gently. "He regained consciousness in the ambulance. We're running tests to determine what caused him to collapse." Tanya followed the doctor through swinging doors into a treatment area. Marcus lay on a bed, his school clothes replaced by a thin hospital gown. An IV dripped fluid into his arm. His eyes were open, but unfocused. "Baby," Tanya whispered, rushing to his side. "What happened?" Marcus turned toward his mother's voice, A tear slid down his cheek. "Mom," was all he managed to say before closing his eyes again. Dr. Rivera checked the monitors. "He's very tired. The body sometimes shuts down after trauma." "Trauma?" Tanya's voice sharpened. "What kind of trauma are we talking about?" "When we examined him, we found bruising on his ribs, abdomen, and back. There's also a small cut inside his lip." The doctor hesitated. "These injuries aren't consistent with a simple fall. They suggest he might have been struck repeatedly." Tanya's hands shook as she carefully lifted the hospital gown to see the dark blue and purple marks across her son's brown skin. Anger rose in her throat. Someone did this to him? At school. She reached for her phone. "I need to call Principal Davison again." Before she could dial, her phone rang. It was the principal himself. "Mrs. Johnson, I have some disturbing news," Mr. Davison said, his voice tense. "We've reviewed the security footage. Marcus wasn't alone in that bathroom. 3 other students entered after him and left before he was found." Tanya felt cold all over. "Who were they?" "I can't share names yet. We've contacted their parents and the police. Officers are on their way to the hospital to speak with you and Marcus when he's able." Tanya hung up and turned back to her son. For the first time, she noticed something she'd missed in her panic. A small notebook poking out from under his pillow. The paramedics must have found it in his pocket. She carefully opened it. Inside, in Marcus's neat handwriting, were dated entries. Her hand flew to her mouth as she read. "September 15. They followed me home again. Called me names. Said I don't belong at Lincoln." October 2. Pushed into lockers between classes. No teachers saw, or they pretended not to. October 10. Threatened to hurt me if I don't give them my math answers. Said no one would believe me anyway. The most recent entry was from just yesterday. They said tomorrow they'll teach me a final lesson. Tanya's hands trembled with rage and grief. Her bright, kind son had been suffering, and she hadn't known how bad it was. She thought about the calls from school that Marcus had supposedly missed because he was in the bathroom or at the library. The sudden drop in his grades. The way he'd stopped mentioning friends. 2 police officers arrived, notebooks ready. "Mrs. Johnson, we'd like to ask you some questions about what happened to your son." Tanya stood up straight, her voice steady despite her tears. "I'll tell you everything I know, but first, you need to see this." She handed them Marcus's notebook. "My son has been documenting harassment for weeks, and today, someone at that school nearly killed him." As the officers read, a nurse entered with Marcus's personal items in a plastic bag. Among them was his phone, screen cracked but still working. A text message notification flashed on the screen from an unknown number. "Say anything and next time will be worse." Principal Davison sat in his office with Mrs. Torres, 2 police officers, and the school district's lawyer. The clock on the wall showed 5:30 p.m., but no one was heading home. Not today. "Let's go through the footage one more time," said Officer Chen, the lead investigator. "From the beginning." Mrs. Torres nodded and started the video again. The security system had been upgraded last year after parents complained about safety. Now those same cameras were revealing an ugly truth. The footage showed Marcus walking to the bathroom at 1:17 p.m. He looked over his shoulder twice, like someone who felt watched. 3 minutes later, 3 boys appeared on screen. They stopped at the water fountain, pretending to drink, but their eyes stayed fixed on the bathroom door. "Those are the 3 students in question?" asked Officer Martinez, writing in her notebook. "Yes," Principal Davison said quietly. "Brad Thompson, our quarterback. Tyler Reed, student body president. And Jason Wells, whose father sits on the school board." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The footage continued. The boys entered the bathroom at 1:21 p.m. At 1:28 p.m., they exited. Brad was wiping his hands on his jeans. Tyler was laughing. Jason looked back at the door, then said something to the others. They high-fived before separating down different hallways. "Now let's look at the footage from earlier today," Officer Chen requested. Mrs. Torres clicked through several files. "Here's the cafeteria footage from lunch period." The screen showed Marcus sitting alone at a table, eating a sandwich. Brad, Tyler, and Jason sat 3 tables away, repeatedly looking in Marcus's direction. At one point, Brad walked by Marcus's table, deliberately knocking Marcus's milk carton over. A cafeteria aide handed Marcus some napkins but did nothing else. And here's footage from yesterday, Mrs. Torres continued. This video showed Marcus at his locker after school. The three boys surrounded him, their backs to the camera. Marcus's face showed fear. No words could be heard, but the body language was clear: intimidation. What about footage from previous weeks? Officer Martinez asked. Mrs. Torres looked uncomfortable. We only keep most footage for 7 days, but I saved some incidents that seemed concerning. She pulled up another video showing Marcus being pushed into lockers between classes. Another showed him in the library with the three boys taking his papers. In every clip, teachers or staff were either absent or looking away. Officer Chen paused the screen. I need to ask a difficult question, Mr. Davison. Were any of these incidents reported? Principal Davison looked down at his desk. 2 incidents were reported by other students. One teacher mentioned seeing something concerning. And what action was taken? The principal's face flushed. We spoke to the boys. They said it was just joking around. We believed them. Officer Martinez's pen stopped moving. You believe them over physical evidence. Brad and Tyler are star students. Jason's father. Principal Davison didn't finish the sentence. The lawyer jumped in. Let's focus on today's incident. We've suspended all 3 students pending investigation. Officer Chen nodded. We'll need copies of all this footage, plus any incident reports, and we need to speak with these boys and their parents immediately. As they gathered their things, Mrs. Torres's computer pinged with an email notification. Her eyes whitened as she read it. It's from a teacher, she said. She says she found this in her classroom after school today. She turned her screen to show everyone. The email contained a photo of a crumpled note that read, We taught Marcus his lesson today. Who should learn next? Officer Chen stood up. This is now officially a criminal investigation. I'm calling for backup. This school needs to be secured as a crime scene. Principal Davison looked shocked. Crime scene? Surely, this is just a school disciplinary matter. Sir, Officer Chen interrupted firmly. A student was assaulted so severely he lost consciousness. We have evidence of premeditation and ongoing threats. This isn't boys will be boys. This is assault, possibly a hate crime. The word hate crime hung heavy in the air as the school's intercom suddenly crackled to life. It was the superintendent. Attention all staff. Lincoln High School will be closed effective immediately until further notice. All personnel report to the district office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. This is not optional. By morning, the news had spread across town like wildfire. The local news van parked outside Lincoln High School, where yellow police tape blocked all entrances. Parents called each other frantically, rumors flew through text messages, and social media buzzed with partial truths and outright lies. At the district office, chaos reigned. Teachers and staff filled every seat in the conference room, their faces showing confusion, worry, and in some cases, guilt. Superintendent Gloria Williams, a tall woman with 30 years in education, stood at the front of the room. Her usual confident demeanor was replaced by grim determination. Everyone, please settle down, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. What happened yesterday at Lincoln High is unacceptable. A student was brutally attacked while in our care. Principal Davison sat in the front row, his tie crooked, eyes red from lack of sleep. Next to him, Mrs. Torres clutched a thick folder of printed security images. The police have officially labeled this incident as a criminal investigation, Superintendent Williams continued. 3 students have been identified as the attackers. Their names will not be shared with you at this time. A math teacher raised her hand. Is Marcus okay? We're all worried sick. Marcus Johnson is still in the hospital. His condition is stable, but he suffered multiple injuries. The superintendent took a deep breath. What's most disturbing is that this wasn't an isolated incident. Evidence suggests Marcus was targeted for weeks, possibly months. Murmurs rippled through the room. Some teachers exchanged knowing glances. Others looked genuinely shocked. I'm here to inform you that effective immediately, the school board has placed Principal Davison on administrative leave pending investigation. Gasps filled the room. Principal Davison stared at the floor, not moving. Additionally, every staff member will be interviewed by both district officials and police officers regarding what they knew or observed about Marcus's treatment at school. A young English teacher stood up. Some of us did report things. I told Mr. Davison twice about concerns I had. Nothing was done. That's part of what we're investigating, the superintendent acknowledged. There appears to be a systematic failure to protect a student, and we need to understand how and why that happened. Outside the conference room, 3 sets of parents and their lawyers waited in separate offices. Brad Thompson's father, a former football star himself, paced angrily. Tyler Reed's mother dabbed at tears while clutching her son's college acceptance letters. Jason Wells's father, school board member Richard Wells, sat stone-faced as he texted rapidly on his phone. Across town at Memorial Hospital, Officer Chen sat beside Marcus's bed. The boy was awake now, sipping water through a straw. His mother had stepped out to speak with the doctor. "Marcus," Officer Chen said gently, "I know this is hard, but can you tell me what happened yesterday in that bathroom?" Marcus looked down at his bandaged hands. "They've been after me all year. Said I thought I was too smart. Said I didn't belong at Lincoln." His voice was barely a whisper. "Yesterday they followed me. Brad held me while Tyler punched. Jason kept watch at the door." "Did they say anything while they were hurting you?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Brad said, 'This is what happens when you don't know your place.' Then they took my phone and texted themselves from it, so they'd have my number. Tyler said they'd come to my house next time." Back at the district office, Superintendent Williams concluded the emergency meeting. "The school will remain closed for the remainder of the week. We're bringing in crisis counselors, anti-bullying experts, and security consultants. When Lincoln reopens, it will be a different place." As teachers filed out, Mrs. Torres approached the superintendent with her folder. "There's something else you should see," she said quietly. "I went through older footage archives last night. This isn't just about Marcus. There's a pattern." She opened the folder to reveal dozens of screenshots, each showing similar incidents with different students of color. The dates spanned the past 2 years. The superintendent's face hardened. This just went from a school problem to a district-wide emergency. 3 days after the attack, Marcus Johnson sat propped up in his hospital bed. The bruises on his face had darkened to deep purple, but the doctors said he was healing well physically. The emotional wounds were another story. Dr. Patel, a child psychologist, sat in a chair beside him. "How are you feeling today, Marcus?" Marcus stared out the window. "Better, I guess." His voice was still quiet, but stronger than before. "Your mother tells me you've agreed to talk to the police again. That's very brave." Marcus turned to face her. "I'm tired of being scared. I want to tell the truth." When Officer Chen arrived with Officer Martinez, Marcus's mother Tanya held her son's hand tightly. A victim advocate and the district attorney were also present, sitting quietly in the corner. "Marcus," Officer Chen began, setting up a small recorder, "we appreciate you speaking with us again. We need to understand everything that happened, not just on Tuesday, but in the weeks before." Marcus took a deep breath. "It started the first week of school. I got the highest score on a science test. Brad got mad because he was supposed to be the smart one and the athletic one. He started watching me, following me. When did it become physical?" Officer Martinez asked. "About a month in. Small things at first, bumping into me in the halls, knocking my books down. Then it got worse." For the next hour, Marcus detailed a systematic campaign of harassment and intimidation. The 3 boys had targeted him for being black and for his academic success, telling him repeatedly he didn't belong at Lincoln High. "Did you tell any teachers?" Officer Chen asked. Marcus nodded. "Miss Peterson, my English teacher. She said she'd handle it. And Mr. Reeves, the gym teacher. He told me to toughen up, because that's just how boys are." Tanya squeezed her son's hand, her jaw tight with anger. "What about the bathroom attack?" Officer Martinez prompted gently. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "They'd been planning it. Brad texted me that morning from a number I didn't know, saying to meet them or they'd come to my house. I ignored it, so they followed me to the bathroom instead." His voice became mechanical, as if he was separating himself from the memory. "Brad blocked the door. Tyler started punching me in the stomach. When I fell, they kicked me. Jason kept looking out to make sure no one was coming." Did they say anything during the attack? Brad said this was my final warning. That smart black boys who didn't know their place always ended up getting hurt. Marcus's voice cracked. Tyler recorded part of it on his phone. Said they'd post it online if I told anyone. The district attorney leaned forward. Marcus, what you've told us is very important. These aren't just school bullies. What they did constitutes assault, intimidation, and possibly hate crimes. Across town, the police executed search warrants on the 3 suspects' homes, confiscating phones and computers. What they found shocked even the experienced officers. In the police station conference room, Chief Wilson spread out printed evidence for the district attorney. We found the video of the attack on Tyler's phone, but that's just the beginning. She showed text messages between the 3 boys planning not just Marcus's attack, but similar attacks on other minority students. There were photos of previous incidents shared in a private chat group called Keeping Lincoln Pure. Most disturbing was an exchange from the night before the attack. Brad, tomorrow we teach that racial slur, a lesson he won't forget. Tyler, my dad says colleges look at discipline records. We can't get caught. Jason, don't worry. My father's on the school board. Nothing will happen to us. At the hospital, Marcus finished giving his statement. As the officers packed up to leave, he called out, "There's something else you should know." Everyone turned back to him. "I'm not the only one," Marcus said. "There were others before me. Kids who left Lincoln because of them. Some transferred. Some just stopped coming. The teachers knew. Everyone knew." Tanya looked at the district attorney. "This isn't just about what happened to my son, is it? This is about a school that let this happen. Over and over again." The district attorney nodded grimly. "And that's why we're not just investigating 3 teenage boys. We're investigating an entire system that failed." The Westridge Times newspaper hit doorsteps early Monday morning with a headline that made coffee cups freeze midway to lips. Student attacks REVLOS PATTERN of racism at Lincoln High. Below was a photo of Marcus Johnson's bruised face in his hospital bed, his mother standing protectively beside him. By 9 a.m., a crowd had gathered outside Lincoln High School. Parents, former students, and community members held handmade signs. "Justice for Marcus. Our children deserve safety. And who protected the bullies?" Among them stood Reverend James Wilson of First Community Church, using a megaphone to address the growing crowd. For too long, certain children at this school have been treated as more valuable than others. His voice boomed across the school grounds. For too long, complaints from black families have been ignored. Today, we say no more. The crowd responded with cheers and raised fists. Across the street, news vans from 3 TV stations had set up cameras. Reporters aimed microphones at angry parents willing to speak on camera. "My daughter told me about these boys last year," said Michelle Carter, her voice shaking. The administration did nothing. Now look what's happened. Inside the district headquarters, Superintendent Williams faced an emergency school board meeting. 6 board members sat grim-faced at a long table. The empty 7th seat, Richard Wells's seat, was noticeable to everyone. "The public response is growing by the hour," Superintendent Williams reported. "We've received over 500 emails and calls from concerned families. The police investigation continues to uncover disturbing evidence." School Board President Helen Diaz shook her head. "How did we miss this? How did an entire school become a place where students were targeted because of their race?" "Because people who should have known better looked the other way," answered Dr. Malcolm King, the only black member of the school board. "Because certain families in this district have been treated as untouchable." The conversation was interrupted by the superintendent's secretary rushing in. "You need to see this," she said, turning on the television mounted on the wall. On screen, a group of Lincoln High teachers stood before a crowd of reporters outside the district building. Leading them was Ms. Peterson, the English teacher who had reported concerns about Marcus's treatment. "We are here today to tell the truth," she announced, her voice steady despite her obvious nerves. "Many of us reported incidents of racist bullying. Many of us begged for action. We were told not to make waves. We were told certain students came from important families. We were told our jobs might be at risk if we pushed too hard." The board members watched in stunned silence as 12 teachers, one after another, detailed specific incidents they had reported that were never addressed. I resigned my position, Ms. Peterson concluded. I cannot work in a system that values some children more than others. By noon, the protest outside Lincoln High had grown to over 300 people. Police officers stood in a line between the crowd and the school building, looking uncomfortable in their riot gear. Mayor Samantha Lee arrived, asking to address the crowd. She was met with both cheers and jeers as she took the megaphone. I understand your anger, she began. What happened to Marcus Johnson is unacceptable, but I'm asking for calm while we've been calm for years, shouted someone from the crowd. Being calm got us nowhere. The mayor tried again. I've spoken with the superintendent. The school will remain closed while we conduct a full investigation. The 3 students involved have been arrested and charged. This is being taken seriously. Tanya Johnson stepped forward from the crowd, requesting the megaphone. The mayor handed it over reluctantly. My son nearly died in that school, Tanya said, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd. Not because of 3 bad kids, but because adults who should have protected him chose not to. Closing the school for a few days isn't enough. We need real change. The crowd erupted in applause and chants of real change now. That evening, the superintendent made a televised announcement. Lincoln High School would remain closed indefinitely while a complete investigation and restructuring took place. This is not just about punishing 3 students, she said, looking directly into the camera. This is about acknowledging a system that failed and rebuilding it from the ground up. 2 weeks after Lincoln High School closed its doors, a large conference room at the district office had been transformed into an investigation headquarters. The walls were covered with photos, timelines, and charts. 3 state education officials, led by Dr. Vanessa Rodriguez, had taken over the investigation. Let's review what we've found so far, Dr. Rodriguez said to her team and the district representatives. The room fell silent as she stood beside a whiteboard filled with red and blue markers. In the past 3 years, Lincoln High has received 47 formal complaints regarding bullying or harassment. 32 of these complaints came from minority students or their parents. She pointed to a chart. Of these 32 complaints, only 4 resulted in any disciplinary action. Superintendent Williams winced visibly at these numbers. We've interviewed 83 current and former students, Dr. Rodriguez continued. 52 reported witnessing or experiencing racially motivated harassment. Many former students told us they transferred schools because of it. She moved to another board showing staff photos. 8 teachers and 3 counselors reported that they brought concerns to Principal Davison. All were told the matters would be handled. None were. The investigation had expanded beyond just the attack on Marcus. State officials had uncovered a troubling pattern that stretched back years. Most disturbing, Dr. Rodriguez said, we found evidence that certain students received special treatment when accused of misconduct. Athletes, children of donors, and children of influential families were routinely given warnings instead of consequences. She held up a folder. This contains emails between Principal Davison and Richard Wells, discussing how to handle complaints against Jason Wells. Mr. Wells repeatedly reminded the principal of his position on the school board and his family's donations to the athletic department. That morning, Richard Wells had resigned from the school board, citing personal reasons. His son Jason, along with Brad Thompson and Tyler Reed, remained under house arrest with ankle monitors, awaiting trial in juvenile court. Across town at Memorial Hospital, Marcus Johnson was being discharged. The physical bruises were fading, though he still moved carefully to avoid pain from his healing ribs. His mother and grandmother helped him into the car. You sure you're ready for this, baby? His grandmother asked, adjusting his pillow in the back seat. Marcus nodded. I have to do it, for everyone who didn't get to tell their story. They drove to the county courthouse, where Marcus was scheduled to give his testimony to a grand jury considering additional charges against his attackers. Despite juvenile proceedings normally being closed, the district attorney had requested special consideration given the serious nature of the crimes. Inside the courthouse, Marcus was surprised to see a dozen other teenagers and their families waiting. He recognized some from school, others he didn't know. A woman approached Tanya and Marcus. You don't know me, she said quietly. I'm Jennifer Reed, Tyler's mother. Tanya stiffened, stepping slightly in front of her son. please," Jennifer said, her eyes red from crying. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. So sorry for what my son did. I didn't raise him to hate." Her voice broke. "I don't know where I went wrong." Before Tanya could respond, the district attorney approached. "Marcus, these other students are here to testify too." After your story came out, they found the courage to come forward with their own experiences. One by one, the students introduced themselves to Marcus. Some had been at Lincoln recently, others had left years ago. All had similar stories of harassment that went unaddressed. "You're the reason we're here," said a girl named Aisha. "When you spoke up, people finally listened." Back at the district office, Dr. Rodriguez concluded her presentation. "Based on our findings, we recommend the following. All current administration at Lincoln High should be removed. A complete restructuring of the disciplinary system is needed. Anti-bias training should be mandatory for all staff. And most importantly, a new reporting system must be established that ensures every complaint is documented and addressed." Superintendent Williams nodded. "I accept all recommendations. And I'm adding one more. We need to establish a student-led advisory committee with real power to oversee these changes." As the meeting ended, Dr. Rodriguez received a text message from the courthouse. "The grand jury has heard from 15 victims today. They're recommending upgraded charges including hate crimes." The systemic investigation was revealing what many had known but few had acknowledged. Marcus's attack wasn't an isolated incident. It was the inevitable result of a system that had been broken for years. 6 months after the attack that changed everything, Lincoln High School reopened its doors. The brick building looked the same from the outside, but inside, almost everything had changed. A large banner hung in the main hallway, "Lincoln High School, where every student belongs." Below it stood Marcus Johnson, now a junior, greeting new and returning students as they entered. The bruises on his body had healed completely, though occasionally he still winced when laughing too hard. The deeper wounds, the ones no one could see, were healing more slowly, but they were healing. "Welcome to Lincoln," Marcus said to a nervous freshman. "I'm on the student safety committee. If you ever need anything, just look for someone wearing this pin." He pointed to a blue and gold pin on his shirt showing clasped hands. The once empty display case that had held only sports trophies now showcased student achievements of all kinds: art, music, academics, and community service. Photos of diverse student groups covered the walls where once only football players had been celebrated. In the principal's office, Dr. Amara Wilson, the new principal selected after a nationwide search, was meeting with Tanya Johnson. Over the past months, Tanya had become the chairperson of the district's newly formed Parent Advocacy Council. "The new reporting system is working well," Dr. Wilson explained, showing Tanya data on her computer. "Every complaint is logged electronically. Parents receive updates automatically. Nothing can be deleted or ignored." Tanya nodded approvingly. "And the teachers are comfortable with it?" "More than comfortable, they're relieved. Many of them felt helpless under the old system." The transformation of Lincoln High hadn't been easy. After the state investigation revealed years of ignored complaints and special treatment for certain students, the entire administrative team had been replaced. 12 teachers had also chosen to leave, though most stayed to be part of the solution. Every staff member had completed extensive training on recognizing and addressing bias. A new disciplinary system ensured that all students faced the same consequences for the same actions, regardless of their family's influence. Most importantly, students themselves had been given a real voice in how their school operated. In the courthouse downtown, a different kind of justice was playing out. Brad Thompson, Hyda Reed, and Jason Wells sat with their parents and lawyers as the juvenile court judge delivered her decision. "The crimes you committed were serious and showed planning and deliberate cruelty," Judge Harris said, looking at each boy in turn. "However, I also acknowledge that you were products of a system that failed to teach you proper values and boundaries." The judge announced their sentences: 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service focused on racial justice initiatives, mandatory counseling, and participation in a restorative justice program where they would meet with their victims. "You'll also write comprehensive research papers on the history and impact of racial violence in America," the judge added. "Your education on this topic is clearly lacking." As the boys left the courtroom, they passed Tanya in the hallway. She didn't look at them. Her fight wasn't with three misguided teenagers anymore. It was with the system that had created them. That evening, Lincoln High held a community dinner in the school cafeteria. Students, parents, teachers, and community members filled every table. The mood was cautiously hopeful. Marcus stood at the podium, his mother and grandmother watching proudly from the front row. 6 months ago, I was found unconscious on the bathroom floor of this school, he began, his voice strong and clear. I was attacked because of my race, and because some people thought I didn't belong here. The room was completely silent. Today, I stand before you to say that what happened to me was terrible, but what came after, what all of you helped build, is something important, something good. He gestured to the diverse crowd. This is what a school community should look like. People who look different from each other, who come from different places, but who respect each other, who protect each other. Marcus smiled at his mother, then continued. What happened to me could have been the end of my story. Instead, it was the beginning of a new chapter for all of us. I'm proud to be a student at the new Lincoln High. I'm proud of who we're becoming. The applause that followed was thunderous. As Marcus returned to his seat, students from every grade surrounded him with high fives and hugs. The path to healing wasn't over, but a school that had once been broken was finding its way back to wholeness, one student, one day at a time.